Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to have a look at what's going on with the prices of Twilight Masquerade. It's been out for a few weeks now. It is legal for play at the North American International Championships this weekend. Why, yes, I am going to be on the commentary team for NAIC. How cool is that? The answer is extremely. So it's time to look at what's happening and whether the prices are continuing to go down as we're expecting, or whether the presence of an impending international championships is in fact pushing things up a little bit. Now, when I spoke to you before, there were two cards that were needlessly expensive and annoyingly expensive, and I want to start there, starting off with Greninja. Greninja EX was way more expensive than it should have been. What's happened since we last spoke? Keeps going up. It's gone up to $180-ish, $170, $180. That's roughly what we're looking at. You can see when it released over on TCG Player, we saw a drop from 160 to 110, exactly as expected. It's reading as 170 as the market price on TCG Player. But again, if you look at the most recent solds, which is something we always have to do, 185 and 179 are the last two solds. So calling it a $170 card seems slightly disingenuous. This is a monster of a card, and I still don't get it. There are multiple reasons why a card would end up becoming really ridiculously expensive. Because the artwork is absolutely next level, which we see on, let's say, the Magikarp, the illustration rare Magikarp. I really don't think we're there. It is very, very rare that a card gets up there because of artwork, and Magikarp is about the only recent example I think we've got of that. If it's amazingly playable, and look, this is a decently playable card, but in this set alone, it is definitely not as good as Blood Moon Ursaluna. It is definitely not as good as Teal Mask Ogapon. So there are two special illustration rare Pokemon that are definitely better because we've got results and stuff. We know they are better cards. And sure, Greninja's popular. You know, Greninja was always featured highly in the anime. And when you get a Pokemon that's featured highly in the anime, that does always make it a little more popular when we get the card. But this is outshining stuff like Charizard right now. Like the Charizard special illustration rares, none of them are this high. That's ridiculous. There is no reason this should be high. Not this high. Like, I get it's a great card, but the artwork shouldn't put it there. The Pokemon shouldn't put it there. If Charizard cannot get this high, there is no excuse for this being this high. Like, the highest Charizard we've got is the one from 151, and that's sitting down at about $110-ish card. In what world is that Charizard $110, but this Greninja is up at 170, 180. Nah, mate. I am not buying it. I like giving you explanations as to why the prices are doing what they're doing. Otherwise, I'm just reading off a list, and that makes for a boring video. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think there is a good explanation for what's going on to this Greninja. This Greninja makes no sense. Now, the other one that was way too high, needlessly high, nonsensically high, was the illustration rare Eevee. We do a thing where every so often, normally once a set, we'll take a random illustration rare and just massively bump it up in price. We saw it with Ghastly and Temporal Forces. We saw it with the Magikarp. And when I say needlessly bump it up, what I mean is we can look at the prices in Japan and it doesn't make sense. Greninja should not be as high as it is, and we can see in Japan and know that to be true. Same thing with this Eevee. Should it be the highest illustration rare in the set? Absolutely it should. Should it be a $40 card? Absolutely it should not be. And if we have a look at the graph, it's waving around. But right now, it is sticking around $40. Now, you are going to see, hang on a second, Wassy. We've got a recent one there for $20. Yes, Japanese. The Japanese one sold for $20, so don't be surprised here. there is one that looks like it's sold much cheaper, but it is a Japanese version of it. This, again, should not be this high. There's no real explanation other than the fact that it's Eevee. But again, there are other illustration rares of other very, very cool Pokemon that don't get this high. This should not be this high. I'm not saying it shouldn't be the number one illustration rare. It absolutely should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be attracting a little bit of value. It absolutely should be. I am saying that a $40 illustration rare makes no real sense, and it happens once a set when we randomly pick a card and go, hey, let's pump this one up. And that is exactly what's happened here, and I don't think there is anything to justify this happening. Just like we said with Greninja, I don't think this makes a huge amount of sense. Because the thing is, the playable cards from this set, oh, they are crashing. They are crashing. Good, I told you about Blood Moon Ursaluna. Blood Moon Ursaluna is a phenomenal card. It's a ridiculous card. 240 damage for 5 colorless energy. But it reduces by 1 every time your opponent takes a prize? Yes! Absolutely yes. That sounds great. And it's a special illustration rare, and it's got a Munchlax on it, but the price is crashing. Like, no ifs, buts, or maybes here. It's not going up and down, it's not flicking around or any of that. We are seeing full-on crashing with the Blood Moon Ursaluna. It started off as about a $100 card as a pre-sale, and then on release we're seeing about an $80 card, and then we're already down to $55, and it's clearly still going down. Make no mistake about it, Blood Moon Ursaluna as a card is crashing in terms of value. It is going down quite quickly and quite obviously. No argument there. And they should. This is generally what happens to cards on release. And I almost feel like in Twilight Masquerade, and this is a theory of mine, but I do feel like there's some truth to it, it almost feels like people are trying to speculate and create big collector cards. Because there's no reason why Greninja should be that much higher than Blood Moon Ursaluna. I can understand that people can go, well, it's Greninja, and yeah, it is. But treble the price? No. And then we can look at Teal Mask Ogapon. I showed you that amazing frame Pokemon sent me the other day, which is absolutely absurd. And now that they've sent me that frame, I kind of need the illustration rare Ogapon cards. So I'm loving that this is crashing. We started off at about $70 as a pre-sale. It's now down to $45. It is clearly going down and going down significantly. But Teal Mask Ogapon is a great card. We are a little bit early in the meta right now, but there is a strong argument that if it's not the best deck in the format with Raging Bolt, it is top 2. Over at Japan Nationals this past weekend, we kind of saw it come second to Lugia, so there is a strong argument Lugia is actually number 1, but I think you could say with a high degree of conviction that this is the second best deck in the format. And it's a special illustration rare of one of the main cards in the second best deck in the format. And yet it's significantly lower. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. That makes no real sense to me. Blood Moon Ursaluna and Teal Mask Ogapon are doing exactly what we would expect. They are going down very, very nicely. But Greninja and Eevee, they are jumping up. And we're seeing that's happening with a couple of these special illustration rare supporters as well. Carmine started off nicely, crashed from 120 down to 75, exactly like we're expecting. It's back up to 120. It's gone back up to where we started. Now, Carmine is a decently playable card. It's a bad Professor's Research, but you can use it turn 1 going first, so it will see play. It already is seeing play. It's a good card. And Carmine's a decently popular character, and the artwork is nice. But again, are we honestly believing that this should be a $120 card? That this should have gone back up again after release? Because this is not usually what happens. To use a comparison here, the biggest supporter card in the Scarlet and Violet block, the biggest special illustration red supporter card in the entire block is the INO from Paldea Evolved, which is rocking around $75, $80. And that is INO, and it's a staple in like every deck. Are we really expecting Carmine to end up 50% higher than Ino? Because I'm just putting it out there that I'm not buying that. That does not seem right. But we're also doing it with Perrin. It started off quite low at $60, immediately jumped up to $80, went back down to $55, and now it's jumped back up to $80. Now, sure, over the past few days it is actually coming down from its new high, but Perrin again is fine. Swap 2 Pokemon in your hand for 2 Pokemon in your deck. It's a cool enough card, don't get me wrong. But really? I don't buy this. I don't think this is a fair reflection of value of Perrin. I think Perrin's being jumped up way too much. And that gives us a few cards here. Greninja, Eevee, Carmine, Perrin, all of which are jumping up in a way that they really shouldn't be. And actually, we do see the same thing happening with Kieran. Not as pronounced as we saw with Carmine, but it's still happening. And Kieran again, Kieran is fine. Decently playable card, decently popular character. I actually like the artwork more than I like Carmine. And like, I pulled this from an Elite Trainer box, so I'm cool with this going up in price. I don't need to buy it anymore. But these cards going up really don't make a huge amount of sense, and I don't even think it's an NAIC thing. Because if it was an NAIC thing, it would be Blood Moon Ursaluna and Teal Mask Ogapon and Gold Buddy Buddy Poffin that would be jumping up in price. But Gold Buddy Buddy Poffin has crashed from $80 down to like $40. $43 if you want to be a pedant right now. The playable cards, the fancy versions of them, are crashing exactly like we would expect. Most of the cards in the set, like I showed you the other day, are crashing rather nicely. But there are some special illustration rares that are weirdly jumping up in price in a way that doesn't really make a huge amount of sense, and I don't think is going to last. I don't think this is reflective of what we're going to see in long-term trends. I think there are cards people are massively speculating about. You know, Dragapult's amazing, but Full Art Dragapult just crashed on release like we're expecting. All the cards that are more expensive in Japan because they're playable are doing fine, and all the cards that are quote-unquote collector cards, they are actually doing way better than they should be. I don't think this is going to last. But I promised you an update as to what's happening. This is the update as to what's happening. Generally speaking, still crashing, but there are some special illustration rares that are doing way differently to how we would expect, and that I find very interesting indeed. But I've told you about all of that, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me if you pulled any of these cards. Tell me if you want to pick some of these up and whether you're waiting or not. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.